he like got to me and he like swatted a dick away from my mouth, and I was like, oh my God, that's like so gallant, you know? What a gentleman. I've never been treated this way before.
Welcome to This Is Not Happening. I'm your host, Roy Wood Jr. Game time! That's ball game. Drop your shuttlecocks. It's tub time. I see you. My MVP right there. Yeah, I see you. Hey, ho. What's your secret? Cheerios.
Check out his half-hour special right here on Comedy Central, Joel Kim Booster.
So let's go all the way back to the beginning, to the very first piece of pornographic material I ever consumed. At the age of 9, it was a piece of BDSM-themed Pokemon fan fiction that I read on the internet. Yes, that was true. It was deeply embedded in the Pokemon fan fiction community at the time, and I took a sharp left turn down an alleyway on the internet that I was not prepared for. And I just really want you guys to understand the gravity of that situation for me. That is how I learned about sex. That was like the first time it ever like entered into my mind. I lived in a very religious household. My parents did not talk to me about sex. In fact, 3 years later when I turned 12, they handed me a book entitled A Christian Parent's Guide to Talking to Your Kids About Sex and let me play both parts. And like I read that and I was like, oh, Mom, Dad, like Squirtle handled that 3 years ago, okay? Like, I got it, it's fine. You're a little late on that. And you guys all know like what Pokemon is. It's dog fighting for kids. We're aware of that. It's a Japanese import. I had like a very skewed POV on the Michael Vick trial growing up, thanks to Pokemon. I was like, what's the big deal? But it was like very eye-opening to me, and like it was exciting, and I was like, if this is sex, then I want in. And it was great. And I grew up, and I loved porn. I got into regular porn too. I started watching like all the very vanilla stuff, like stepdad's misbehaving, and oops, I fucked my stepson, and I fucked my stepson's friend, like all the normal stuff. But I was always like very, like I gravitated towards the kinkier, weirder shit too, anything where someone was getting hit or spit on or like treated poor, like anything that could happen in a prison, I was like, yes, this is what I wanted. And like, as I was like becoming a teenager and starting to have sex, like that's what I wanted for myself. But it wasn't really happening. I was more of like an aspiring sex freak at that point because I lived in the Chicago suburbs. I was like 16 years old. It was not the sex that I was having that I was seeing in this porn. It was mostly just like toothy blowjobs in the back of the Cold Stone Creamery, because that's where we all worked, If you were a gay teen in the suburbs, you worked at a Cold Stone Creamery. It is the Underground Railroad for gay teens. Bar none. We all worked there. And like, so I was like I was living like a very unfulfilled sexual life as a teenager. And then I went to college, things got a little bit better. And then like halfway through college, I had the opportunity to study abroad in the world capital of sex freaks. What is it?
Tokyo.
Okay, wrong. I feel attacked. Okay, let's try it again. What is the world capital of sex freaks? Exactly, thank you. You're done over here. It is Amsterdam. I've got a fellow sex freak over here. He knows. Yeah, I went to Amsterdam. It was a lot of fun. I went with one of my really good straight friends. Very bravely have a straight friend. And it was great. We did all the normal stuff. We hit all the museums. We smoked all the weed. We tried, all of the all-you-can-eat buffets that are only all-you-can-eat for 2 hours. And then finally, sort of like near the end of the trip, I was like, okay, I've got to do this. I've got to live all of my sexual fantasies out here because I know it's happening here in Amsterdam. So one night, I broke away from the group and I went to a club called the cock ring, which is very on the nose. You know, you understand what you're getting from a club called the cock ring. It's no longer open, RIP, but it was like the best sex club in Europe at the time. And gay sex clubs are like so much fun. They are all like combination spa haunted houses, you know? Like there's just like mirrors everywhere, a lot of steam, like holes with hands reaching out to grab you know? Like the first time someone touches you, you're like, are you allowed to do that? Like, I don't think this is right. But it was so exciting. Like I walked into the cock ring and like literally like sex was happening all around me. It was like every single porn fantasy had come to life. There were like men in slings and people being tied up and people being like led around like little dogs. It was like so exciting for me at the age of 19. And I stepped into the back of the club where literally like an orgy was happening in this back room, and it was baby's first orgy. It was very exciting. Like I was at my peak. I was 19 years old. I was on all the drugs. I didn't have body dysmorphia yet. You know, like I was truly like at my peak, you know, to be doing this. So I just dove like head first right into the orgy. Some of you caught that. Some of you didn't. And it was great. I was like having the time of my life, you know. I was just like surrounded by dicks. My face was like a dick clock, you know, just like 12 dicks around, you know. My face, and every hour was dick o'clock. And then I looked up at one point, and across the orgy, I made eye contact with what at the time was like the hottest person I had ever seen in my life. He had like blonde hair, blue eyes, you know, like the enemy. And he was amazing. It was like a total rom-com moment with him, and he knew what was happening, so he like sort of pushed everyone away and started like wading across the orgy to me. And I'll never forget, he like got to me and he like swatted a dick away from my mouth, and I was like, oh my god, that's like so gallant, you know? What a gentleman. I've never been treated this way before in my entire life, and it was so sweet. And so then we're like engaging in sex, and we're like a part of the orgy, and then slowly, surely, like we sort of break off, and it's very clear that like it's like more about us. And so he turns to me, he's like, do you want to go to one of the sex closets? And what is a sex closet? Second chance. Don't fuck this up. What is a sex closet? He's scared now. Exactly. I threw you like the biggest softball in the whole world, and you couldn't get it to me. Yes, it's a closet where you have sex in, and it's like more for like privacy's sake. And so we go in there and we're just like having one-on-one sex, and suddenly it hits me, and I'm like, oh my god, how boring! I'm having sex with one person. He's like, this is not why I came here. What am I doing? And as I was about to like abort it and like go jump back in, he hands me a cigarette that he had sprinkled some powder on top of, and I was like, absolutely yes. I still to this day do not know what drug I did that night. It might have been angel dust. It might have been PCP. C'est la vie, you know? I'll never know. And it was like very exciting, and I did that. It did crazy things to my body. And then he was like, do you want to come back to my place? And like, I did not have a cell phone with me in Europe at the time. And I said yes, and like, I should be fully dead right now. You know, like, there should be a Netflix documentary about my death that you have all just binge watched, you know? Like, you should all have individual theories about who did it, you know? Like, it was the teacher, it was the nun, you know? But no, I'm alive. I like went back to his place with him, and his apartment, it looked exactly like what you probably imagine it to look like. It was like, you know, a spooky IKEA. Very standard stuff. And there was like nothing like super like interesting about it, except the sheets were like really uncomfortable, like pitch black, and I did not get it at the time, but we just started having sex, and it was lovely. And then at one point, I hear him start to moan, and it hits me like I'm standing underneath like a waterfall. And just like one last question for everybody, opening it up to the floor. Have any of you guys been with a man that has ejaculated with such force and volume that you felt like you were being peed on? Anybody back here? No. Okay, well, I guess that settles it. I was peed on. That is, as it turns out, what happened to me. And I can confirm that because when I got back to school, I did see my real human doctor and asked him about this experience. I laid it all out for him, and he was like, that is a medical impossibility, what you're describing. And guys, I don't know if you've ever seen the respect your doctor has for you just drain out of his eyes as you ask him a question, but it is very disheartening. And I was like really grossed out. I was like, oh my God, a man peed on me without my consent. That's crazy. And then I was like really sad about that. But then it hit me. I was like, oh my God, I lived all my dreams. You know? Oh, it happened for me. I evolved, you know? Like a young Bulbasaur turning into an Ivysaur. I became one step closer to being the sex freak that I am today. And like a fun little coda for this story is, that man's name was Bernard. He told me his name was Bernard, and I don't know how, but I found him on Facebook. I should work for the CIA. It was like back at school, and then I was like 19, so I was like, oh, I had a very formative sexual experience with you. We should date. So I like sent him a friend request and sent him that message, and he responded to me, and he was like, hi, Joel, I had a lovely time with you as well, but I am a school teacher and also married, so I cannot accept your friend request. So anyways, I'm still waiting for Bernard to accept my friend request. And in the meantime, having a lot of weird sex. Thank you guys so much. You guys have been fantastic.
Joel Kim Booster, everybody.